Stop. Before you do anything else today, I need you to hear this. Scientists put people who were in love inside brain scanners. And what they found, nobody talks about this, is that a brain in love is neurologically identical to a brain on cocaine. Same regions, same intensity, same dependency patterns. And when that love disappears, your brain goes into withdrawal. Clinical, measurable, biological withdrawal. The same crash an addict feels when the drug runs out. You've been through this. Maybe you're going through it right now, and you thought it was just emotions, just feelings, just you being too sensitive. It wasn't. It was your brain chemistry, completely hijacked by another human being. We're going inside. The full story. From the first time you couldn't stop staring at someone across a room, to the 3 a.m. moment you're lying awake wondering how something that felt so real just disappeared. Science explains all of it, every single part, and I promise you, by the end of this, you will never see love, heartbreak, or yourself the same way again. Let's go. Here's something that's going to make you uncomfortable. That person you fell for, you didn't choose them. Your brain did. Before you said a word to them, before you even knew their name. Psychologist James Pennebaker at the University of Texas found that attraction is a calculation, happening in milliseconds, completely invisible to your conscious mind. Face symmetry, posture, voice frequency, body language, all of it scored and processed before you form a single thought. You think you have a type, you don't. Your nervous system does. But here's the one that really gets people. The University of Bern ran what's now called the sweaty t-shirt experiment. Women were handed t-shirts worn by different men. No names, no faces, no information, just the shirt. And they were asked, which smell do you find most attractive? Consistently, women chose the smell of men whose immune systems were genetically different from their own. Not stronger, not healthier, different. Because your body is running evolutionary calculations you will never consciously access. Different immune profiles create stronger, more resilient children. Your nose, right now, every single day, is quietly scanning every room you walk into for the best possible genetic match. You thought you fell for their personality. Your immune system had already voted. And then there's something called the mere exposure effect, discovered by psychologist Robert Zions. The more you see someone, the more attractive they become. Not because they change, because your brain starts to associate their face with safety. This is why you fall for your best friend after years of just being friends. This is why office romances are everywhere. Proximity isn't just convenient, it's neurologically inevitable. So before you've had a single conversation, your brain has already run the full background check, made the decision, filed the report. You're just catching up to it. Okay, here's where it gets intense, because falling in love isn't just an emotion, it is a full chemical takeover of your brain. And the three substances responsible, they behave almost exactly like drugs. Dopamine first. Helen Fisher, neuroscientist at Rutgers University, spent years putting people who were newly in love inside fMRI machines. She'd show them a photo of their partner and watch the brain respond in real time. The reward centers lit up instantly, the same exact regions that cocaine activates. Fisher called romantic love, and I want you to really hear this, a natural addiction. Not poetically, clinically. The craving, the euphoria, the obsessive thinking, all of it driven by dopamine flooding your system. But here's the part that changes everything. Dopamine doesn't spike when you get the reward. It spikes hardest when the reward is uncertain. This is why early love is so overwhelming. You don't know if they feel the same. You don't know when they'll text back. You don't know what they're thinking. That uncertainty, that not knowing, that's your dopamine system in overdrive. The anxiety you feel waiting for their message? That's not weakness, that's addiction. Literally. Norepinephrine, second. Racing heart, sweaty palms, can't eat, can't sleep, mind running loops at 2 a.m. when your body is begging you to stop. Norepinephrine is a stress hormone, but in the context of love, it creates something that feels like electricity and panic at the same time. Studies show that people newly in love have norepinephrine levels nearly identical to people with diagnosed anxiety disorders. So if being in love feels like a beautiful breakdown, you're not imagining it. Serotonin, third. And this one will surprise you. Serotonin is your calm, stable, I'm okay chemical. When you fall in love, serotonin crashes. Psychiatrist Donatella Mariziti at the University of Pisa compared serotonin levels across 3 groups: people newly in love, people diagnosed with OCD, and a healthy control group. The result? People in love and people with OCD had almost identical serotonin levels, both extremely low. This is why you replay every conversation 17 times, why you analyze a one-word text for an hour, why you literally cannot stop thinking about this person even when you're actively trying to focus on something else. You're not obsessed because you're weak. You're obsessed because your brain chemistry is running an OCD loop. 3 chemicals, 1 person, 0 control. So the chaos starts to settle. The The butterflies quiet down, the panic softens, you stop feeling like you might combust every time they walk into the room. And something deeper starts to form. Something that dopamine can't build. This is oxytocin, released through physical touch, hugging, holding hands, kissing, sex. And it does something that the early love chemicals don't. It creates safety, trust, the feeling of wanting to stay, not because you're addicted, but because this person has become home. Neuroscientist Paul Zak has spent decades studying oxytocin. He found that it doesn't just make you love your partner more, it makes you trust them more than is sometimes rational. Experiments showed that people given oxytocin were more willing to forgive betrayal, more open emotionally, more willing to be vulnerable with people they barely knew. Love doesn't just open your heart, it literally lowers your psychological defenses. You become more trusting, on a chemical level, whether you want to or not. And alongside oxytocin, there's vasopressin, the commitment molecule. Researchers studying prairie voles, one of the only naturally monogamous mammals on Earth, found that vasopressin is what makes them pair bond for life. When scientists blocked vasopressin in male prairie voles, the males stopped being faithful immediately. When they increased it, the males became deeply, almost obsessively loyal. In humans, vasopressin is linked to protectiveness, jealousy, and long-term attachment. It's the chemical that transforms attraction into "I would do anything for this person." So here's the full arc. Dopamine pulls you in, norepinephrine makes you electric, serotonin crashes and you obsess. Then oxytocin builds the bond, and vasopressin makes you stay. From electricity to roots. But now, I need to tell you something that most people don't want to hear. Because for a lot of people, this next part is the part that explains everything. Some relationships feel more intense, more addictive, more all-consuming, more impossible to walk away from, not because they're better, but because they're more uncertain. Helen Fisher's research established that romantic love activates the same neural dependency pathways as substance addiction. Psychologist Robert Weiss identified a pattern he calls love addiction, where a person's entire emotional stability becomes dependent on one other human being. When that person is present, they feel high, calm, like everything is okay. When that person pulls away even slightly, they crash. The texts go unanswered for 2 hours and suddenly the whole day is ruined. They seem distant and your brain starts running disaster scenarios. They don't say "I love you" the same way they did yesterday, and you lie awake at 1 a.m. trying to figure out what changed. Sound familiar? This connects to what psychologist John Bowlby identified as anxious attachment, a relationship pattern that usually forms in childhood when love felt unpredictable, when affection was inconsistent, when you had to earn safety rather than simply have it. The partners who trigger the most anxiety, the inconsistent ones, the hot and cold ones, the ones who are perfect one week and distant the next, those partners also produce the most dopamine. Because dopamine spikes hardest when the reward is unpredictable. An unstable, anxious relationship chemically feels more intense than a stable, healthy one. Not because it's better, because your dopamine system is running on uncertainty, and uncertainty is its favorite drug. This is why people go back, why they stay, why they describe someone who hurt them repeatedly as impossible to get over. It's not love making them irrational, it's their own brain chemistry, doing exactly what it was designed to do. And now you know, your attraction wasn't random, your obsession wasn't weakness, your inability to walk away wasn't stupidity, it was dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, oxytocin, vasopressin, 5 chemicals, running a program so powerful, you never had a chance of seeing it clearly until now. But here's the thing, we're only halfway through the story, because what happens next, when love disappears, when someone leaves, when your brain loses its source, that's where it gets even darker and even more fascinating. Part 2 is coming. And I promise you, the science of heartbreak, withdrawal, and how the brain actually heals will change the way you see every breakup you've ever been through. If this video made you think about someone, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want part 2 the moment it drops, subscribe. You won't want to miss what comes next. See you there.